right? Talking about sexy golf.
Yeah. Did you get
Yeah,
my
go on.
did you get my message? Yeah, Monday. The sword,
Uh,
the two swords found in Gloucester.
was that the two swords in
Roman
Gloucester?
swords.
Yeah, that we're going to do tonight.
All right, okay.
That look like they're Iron Age swords. Yeah,
Yeah,
those are the ones.
okay.
Yeah,
Sorry I was late. Anyway, never.
yeah. Don't worry about it. You could. It could be worse. You could be Pat or Anne. Right. Any news from you, Goff, this week? Have you seen
No,
any film?
no, nothing new. Just that message, just that article in the on the BBC about the
I
swords.
appreciate that. I appreciate that because we're using it tonight. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Well, they're all good, but that was pretty pertinent. And
Well,
and
got a
you
question.
don't
I've got a
what?
question for you, if you don't mind. You know, they found something at the airport in Port Kerry.
Yeah,
Which side of the runway was it? The Barry side or the Port
the
Kerry side?
tri- the Fonmon side.
The Fonmon side.
Yeah, the Fonmon side. Yeah.
So that'd be near the church in Port Kerry. And
No. The actual Fonmon side over towards the castle.
right, I got it. Okay, okay. Someone was
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah. No, it's that side because they've been working there for some time. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah. It's that side. Yeah. Um. Right. Okay. Right. Richard.
No, nothing new from me.
From you. From me to you and Henry.
Only the shed that they found in Scotland. I sent you the link on.
What the 30-meter long shed from the that was huge. Yeah, that huge building from Scotland. Yeah, I got that. Thank you very much. I was just trying to work out what to do with that. So
Right. Well, don't build on it.
no. This is already there, and the problem is, have they got planning permission? Because it's is it in agricultural land? Is it that's it. So right. Yeah, my week's been interesting. I went to see 28 years later, and then we also went to we went to see the heavy metal concert in Cardiff with Slayer and Anthrax, and on Friday I was doing some film work, and that was rather bizarre. So yeah, that's sort of been my week, and teaching you guys. Now, what we've got tonight, it's based on, go on, it's based on sort of few questions and things that have built up over the past few weeks. So we look at a site in Spain, sort of briefly. We look at these two swords that happen to be Iron Age swords and not Roman swords. We look at this explorer and we Hanno, this Carthaginian explorer, and we look at Pythias, and we look at a couple of Roman historians. And I was thinking last night after I'd done all of this, I thought what you probably need to do now is slow down a little bit and not do too much every week. But yeah, we're just sort of putting the bits in. So anyway, so what we're going to do, we're going to crack on with the images, and hopefully, God, where are they? Screen. Can I ask you guys, did Anne join us last week?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. All right. We better crack on before she turns up.
Yeah, she definitely did.
We better crack on before she turns up. Yeah, good. So one of the things that was mentioned was, when we were looking at Carthage, it was like how many of these Carthaginian remains actually still exist. And one person had said they'd actually been to this place, and this place is known as Empurius, which is Empuries, Empurius, and this is actually on the Pyrenees. So there it is. There it is, and it's on the Pyrenees. So this in the area of Catalonia. So when I just thought, right, okay, we've been trying to find a few weeks for me to try and work out which place this was, and this sort of links us with the next bit, Pytheas, and his traveling to Europe, and it links us in with Hanno, him traveling along the coast of Africa. And one thing that very much occurs to me is that there are different ways of looking at movement and influence, and like many places that we discuss, like this one, this was probably founded because somebody decided to go further away from Greece, and then they founded a settlement that then become a village, and then become a town, and then become a place of great importance. So Empures is one of those localities, and it sort of links us in with the character Pytheas, who's like this Greek Phoenician style Carthaginian explorer that heads north along the coast of Europe. Spain, Portugal, France, goes over to Britain, apparently circumnavigates the whole of Britain, even ended up in the Baltic. And it's said that Pytheas, in fact, discovered Iceland. But back to this locality. So on the backdrop of these explorers, you've got these localities that they're coming from, right? So this type of locality here is the type of place that Pytheas would have actually come from. Pytheas came from Marseille, and this is this locality, and Empures is in Spain. So again, founded as a small island settlement, turning into, there it is, a town. And again, getting an idea of how things are moving in the Mediterranean. So this place was probably founded on at the sense of peace, not conquest. And the Greeks who are founding these settlements are probably going out because their island has been invaded by the Persians, or they've decided that there's too many people wandering around in Greece on the islands or in mainland Greece, and so they're going out and founding these places. And Empurus was originally known as Paleopolis, which basically means the old city. So as things start to develop, it's known as Neapolis, and the new city. So being called Paleopolis, meaning that there's been something pretty important here, way before 550, when the Greeks actually got here. So using this as a start today, as a springboard to see where our explorers are moving from, such as Hanno, the Carthaginian, as such as Pytheas, as I said, who's a bit of a mix between a Greek and a Phoenician, and chuck a bit of Carthaginian in there. So they're spreading out from these localities, and it's putting this in context. But then, like many things, warfare comes in, swords and things, and these places are then conquered eventually by about the year 218. It falls into the hands of the Carthaginians, and then by around the 200s, it then eventually falls into the hands of the Romans. So let's move on to the other link tonight, which is looking at an archaeological discovery that was made in southern England. And this archaeological discovery includes swords, fresco fragments, wonderfully interesting looking archaeologists, and a piece of history that takes us directly into the Iron Age and the Roman period. A very interesting looking archaeologist indeed. And it's a very interesting one, this, because one minute it talks about Roman swords, and then when you start looking at these swords, they're clearly Iron Age. And it was a little bit of a lesson last night. You know, it was like I was umming and ahhing, and I was I was trying to go with the text, which was slightly wrong, and then coming to the conclusion that we're looking at something different. But the stuff that they found at this Iron Age Roman site ties me in Gloucestershire, ties me directly into something that I'm getting into myself. And I've got Anne calling me. Oh my God. Anne, I'm smack bang in the middle of the presentation, and I've just answered the phone.
I can't log on. I can't do it tonight.
Why can't you log on?
I can't find the site. Zoom, you know. I think I've lost my password and everything.
Do you want me to give you these details? Do you want me to send you a link?
Send me a link, please.
Okay, I'll send a link over to your phone now. Okay.
To my computer.
Right. Okay. Right. Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Right. Okay, then I'll send you this link now. I will send it over to you now. I will. Okay. You end the call and I'll send it to you now.
Okay.
Okay. Take care. Bye. Sorry about that, guys. That's thrown me a little bit. Hang on a minute. I'll just forward her this. Christina. There. Good. Hang on. There you go. She's got the special link, guys. If you've ever got this problem, she gets the special link. Because I get something sent to me by Zoom, and it's the special link. And it basically, you press the start button and you're away. Right, that's it. Let's get back to it. So yeah, so one of the things I'm starting, right, is I've got the I got two bits of little woodland, and I've got one little sort of spooky little bit of a woodland on the side of the road, and it's like we weren't really doing anything with it, and other than the goat goes over there, and you know we've been clearing the brambles, and funnily enough, the goat's called Bramble, and what it is, sort of on a regular basis, I'm gonna sit around a little campfire for just a minute, and then I could just be talking a little bit about the Iron Age Roman world, sort of in this woodland setting. So I do that as a little bit of. I might do longer ones and just do a minute one and then a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And the whole point of this is that I'm going to start to buy bits of Iron Age Roman costume and try to sort of get into Roman and Iron Age life, and that's what I'm doing. So this is really good. This piece now, and I'll just show you a few images, and there's what they've been finding at the site, right? And there they are. And what gives this away is that there is not the pommel, but that is the scabbard end, right? And that design is not Roman, that's Iron Age. So when sometimes when you get images in a newspaper, because let me explain. When I was explaining this last night, I they're basically that is where the grip would be and the pommel, right? And down there would be where the sword fits into the scabbard, right? And this is and when they were explaining this as Roman swords, it's actually wrong, right? Because that those two things are actually Iron Age features, right? Anyway, going back to this, so they've got this really exciting settlement, and it's an extensive Iron Age site going way back, 2,000 years, and unearthing these swords. Well, the swords were actually originally found by two metal detector enthusiasts, and the good thing about when they discovered it was the fact that these things on the end remained. If they didn't find these things, if these things weren't on the end, then they've just been bits of iron, and they could have been from any date, really. So they're excavating a site which is in Gloucestershire called Willersey. Quite fascinating, this. So they're finding these Iron Age artifacts, and then they're finding Roman artifacts. And in my piece here, it says the dig following. Let's go to the dig. The dig following the discovery of two iron Roman cavalry swords. Wrong. These are rare swords, but they're not Roman. They're Iron Age based swords, right? So they're probably Iron Age people swords that were probably used in this Roman era anyway. So the swords themselves will be going on display in the Carinian Museum in Cirencester on the 2nd of August. And I tell you what, if anyone ever goes to Cirencester, obviously try and find a decent parking space there, because it's really difficult to park. But when you've parked up, go to the Carinian Museum. It's I know a couple of you have already been there. It's a brilliant site. It really is. So going back again to the text, it's valuable insights into finding things like this, and then linking these designs, this sort of this Iron Age world, into some Iron Age Roman archaeology. And in Gloucestershire, lots of the sites are like this, where you get an Iron Age site, and then you've got Roman archaeology there. And this archaeologist is known as Ian Barnes. He definitely looks a bit as an archaeologist. I've got to be honest with you. So again, another beautiful archaeologist there, and she's looking at valuable insights into the nature of settlement patterns from the earlier Iron Age through to the Roman period and beyond. And obviously, this is all again very much with what we're doing. So when Goff said there's this, I thought, yeah, that's really much what we're doing. And this links us in, these two bits of fresco link us in with a few weeks ago, because there was this Japanese archaeologist, if you can remember, he'd been working in the Museum of London, and they had boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of frescoes like this from 20 rooms from the Liberty site at Southwark, the south bank of the River Thames. And one thing that he was telling us is that you get small bits of fresco is because it's fallen from further up on the wall. And you get big chunks of fresco is because they've come off from lower on in the wall. And I think that's fascinating, really. We can all grab a bit of that. So immediately we could think, oh, that bit on the right is probably middle up in the fresco, and the big bit is lower down in the fresco. And it really helps us when we're looking at designs and trying to understand. And usually what you get banded colors with frescoes, where on the paintings on the wall, that you get the darker bold colors at the bottom, and you get the more snazzier colors further up. That's exactly what we got there. So it's really good that we got this. And yeah, the detectorist is saying that that when he went out, it was the second time he'd ever done metal detecting, and he found these two swords. And it's lucky he knew how to deal with them, really, and that's to his credit. So again, excavating on this site, finding evidence of the settlement expanse, and what they've got is, as they're looking over the archaeology here, they're doing geophysics and aerial photography. So the excavations they're found spanning several centuries, and what they've got and what they've found is four sort of Iron Age ring ditch things. So basically, you've got a ring ditch, right, with a little gap, and you would have had one of those around an individual homestead. That would keep the animals in, keep the animals out and stuff, and that'd be good for drainage. And they found, four of these that are about 18 meters in diameter. So it's really good they're getting this archaeology from this, and this again's really interesting. And if somebody said, if somebody didn't put a caption on this, like Carinian Museum, I said, which museum is this stored at? I would have said Carinian, because those are the boxes that they use, and that's the labeling that they use. Because I've been there and I've studied some of their stuff in their basement from a similar site to this called Bagaden, which is also in Gloucestershire. So other than the swords, other than the wonderful bits of painted fresco, a bit of design there as well, they found this wonderful copper bowl. And again, finding something like this is quite important. Again, this is very likely to be from the Roman period, from Roman manufacture, other than local Iron Age manufacture. But got to say things like that with a bit of tongue in cheek, because one and two of another is probably the same thing. And so what they've excavated over the site, other than exciting artifacts like this, is sort of various Roman building materials, ceramic roofing, box tiles for central heating. You'd have boxes in the wall that would put that would draw the heat up into the roof. Obviously the painted plaster and so on. And obviously this new evidence will help us to understand more about what happened around the period of the Roman conquest and beyond. And Gloucester's a rather interesting place. And it basically, in this caption, the archaeologist, Mr. Barnes, he says, this new evidence will help us to understand more about what happened around the period of the Roman conquest, which must have been a tumultuous time. And that's really interesting, because the site that I was studying at Bagaden, which is not far away from here, with this site, that was an early Roman villa site as well. Like, this is an early Roman villa site. And obviously people are thinking, the Romans are coming. Right, okay. We better get people in to start building a site that looks like a Roman house. And that's sort of similar to what was going on. Anyway, so let's go on to the next bit. And again, this all sort of links in with the sort of humanity, that sort of saving grace that we come on to last week, that it's about people. It's not about raping, pillaging, warfare, killing, Rome versus Carthage, all that stuff. It's about real people. It's about trying to grab these objects and bring them alive. And this is what this is about. So, I was thinking of this yesterday. I didn't mention it yesterday. I've got boxes and boxes of Roman material that I'm slowly getting through and working through and publishing. And you never know. We could gather together and have a little look at that over a cup of coffee and whatever sometime. That'd be nice for us to do in the future. No, we won't be doing any walking around fields, Anne, so don't worry about it. We'll just get you to go up the shop to get some food for us. So what I'd like to do next is I'd like to go with, hang on a minute, bit stuck in my thoughts a minute. There we go. Oh, there we go. Right. So what I'd like to do now is a historian. Well, when I say historian, a navigator called Hanno. Right, Hanno it was like last week. It was like when I said we're going to start to do Roman historians and writers and stuff like Pliny and sort of Strabo and Plutarch and Livy and Appian, Cicero, Julius Caesar. But we mentioned this, and somebody said last week, oh, one of you guys, look, Carl, we've been talking about the Carthaginians for the past few weeks. Did they have any historians? And they said, I said, yeah, they had two historians. And then I come across this not a historian, but like well, Hanno was a bit of a writer as well because he wrote down his stuff. But it was like this guy, Hanno the Navigator. And this individual is really important because it sort of sets the scene of movement and how people thought about their world and where their world was really. And so what we've got is that Hanno the Navigator. It's a bit like one of those weird little stories, you know. So Hanno the Navigator is somebody who explored, somebody that went out, somebody that sort of looked at the world, somebody that wanted to know more about his world, right? And this is in the 450s BC, thereabout. Hanno the Navigator. If you look this guy up, Hanno, Hanno, you come across a king, Hanno of Carthage. There's two different people, right? So we've got this perilous journey. Or is it perilous, right? Because he seems to be going out with the large fleet. And it's like, right, okay, there's a nice place there. It looks like a good place that we could sort of set up some kind of colony. So he'd leave people there and sort of keep going down the coast, leave people there. And on the way back, you know, those people are going to be there and they can top up supplies and that type of thing. You know, that's the type of thing that any explorer is going to do. But Hanno, this is 450 years BC. And the only comparison that we've got of anybody like this in the ancient world are those Chinese explorers. So Hanno's really interesting here, and he's a Carthaginian. You know, he is a Carthaginian, not a Greek, not a Persian, not a Roman. He's a Carthaginian. And I stopped there a minute as I'm looking at this map, and I'm thinking, why haven't I heard of him before? Yeah, why haven't I heard of him before? I've heard of Magellan. I've heard of Christopher Columbus. You know, we've heard of Captain Cook. You know, Amerigo Vespucci. You know, we've heard of these people, right? But this guy is, 1,000, 2,000 years before those explorers that I've just mentioned. And Hanno, and I just thought this really weird, this, because the one that we're going to look up after this is Pytheas, right? Pytheas, or however you want to pronounce him. That's the guy who circumnavigated around Britain and went to the Baltic. And there's no doubt about his exploration. But there's no doubt about this guy's exploration either, because along the coast, all the way down to Cameroon, right, Nigeria and Cameroon, there's bits of evidence that have been discovered that tell us of Carthage, tells us that sometime, 2,450 years ago, nearly 2,500 years ago, actually, there's this evidence along the coast. So we know there's this journey. Now we know that there's this journey on the backdrop of the fact that all the information about his journey has been rewritten and rewritten and rewritten again, like Chinese whispers. And then people come back and are unable to understand that this guy actually did his stuff. Hanno actually went out there and did his stuff. So what we've got ancient texts which specifically mention Hanno, the navigator. And what we've got, we've got this sort of bust of him. You know, it's sort of recorded and brought down to us. and it's referred to as a, a a periplus account, right? Which is an account which is laid down years after his original work has been lost and hearsay. Um, so this is being written down by a Carthaginian, right? And then it's moved on into the Greek language, and the Greeks have written it down because the Greeks were really impressed. And then this whole story starts to make you go off into other areas where you think about going out other pillars of Hercules into the Atlantic, and there you've got the Canaries, right? And you start to think, Canaries. What do we know about the Canaries? Well, if we talk about the Canaries, we say the Guauche mummies of the Canaries were first discovered by the Spanish and Portuguese in the 1500s. And that's when the Canaries were discovered. Well, that can't be true, because that cannot be true, because what we've got is we've got the sense of people going into the Atlantic, and then we can start thinking about Plato's writings in the 350s. Yeah, there's another writer there who's Greek. And Plato's writing about the likes of Atlantis, So so what we're really doing with trying to understand this individual, this Hanno, and his exploits, is that some historians just can't get it. They don't want to get it. They're just thinking, well, this can't have happened. This couldn't have happened. It's a Carthaginian. It's got to be some kind of fantasy, right? However, it can't be, because we've got ultimately there is evidence. Ultimately, the Carthaginians probably edited the real account to protect their trade. So the true extent of his journey, the true extent of Hanno's journey, is actually probably not known. So, whilst the Carthaginians would want to boast about their conquests, i.e., they're exploring the coast and they're understanding the coast well before most other people. And when I use the word most other people, there's lots of circumstantial evidence to say that the Egyptians, indeed, before the Carthaginians, 1,000 years before the Carthaginians, circumnavigated Africa. But then again, you could have done it the other way around, right? So let's think of it that way. But Hanno, again, is this individual that is a ground beater, and actually somebody writing a Greek writing exactly the same time that Hanno, he was contemporary with this Hanno, right? Is in fact Herodotus, the amazing writer Herodotus, that writes about the seven ancient wonders, right? But doesn't mention the pyramids. But that's something else. But the Greek historian Herodotus, writing around 430, contemporary with Hanno, described Carthaginian trade on the Morocco coast, though it is doubtful whether he was aware of Hanno's voyage itself. So if they're on the Morocco coastline, right, who's to say that everything that we know about Hanno, everything that we know about Hanno is correct, So people, it's that thing that people really don't want the Carthaginians to glean a sense of importance in history, right? And when what we've got is that we've got Pliny the Elder, who's that guy who dies trying to save people in the Bay of Naples from Vesuvius on 24th of August AD 79. Pliny the Elder. And Pliny the Elder writes of Hanno, he says, while the power of Carthage was at its height, Hanno published an account of a voyage which he made from Cadiz to the extremity of Arabia. Himilco was also sent about the same time to explore the remote parts of Europe. So Arabia, hang on, we actually talking about Africa or Arabia? What's going on here? You know, so Pliny may have recorded the time vaguely because he was ignorant of the actual date. His claim that Hanno completely circumnavigated Africa, reaching Arabia, is considered unrealistic by contemporary scholars. But then again, Pliny, my French, was a bloody Roman. The Romans hated the Carthaginians. So why, after the Carthaginian world has completely been extinguished, would Pliny say that this guy Hanno actually circumnavigated Africa? It's quite amazing, that, I think. And then we got there's so many historians writing about this guy and we've got the archaeological evidence, so it's undeniable. But I wanted to say something there. I think I made this point last night at the same time, right? That what you've got is that you've got people writing down history, and it's usually the winners who write down history. Well, the Carthaginians were not the winners, but one of their greatest champions, Hannibal as well, one of their greatest champions of their culture, right, is remembered for doing something that the Romans didn't. I think that's really interesting. And the point that I wanted to make was that I'm going to say it. If Julius Caesar's writing had not survived, we may know little, if nothing, about Julius Caesar's invasion of Britain in 56, 55, 54 BC. And if that being the case, the first person to invade Britain would have been Emperor Claudius in the summer of AD 43. Remember that. Always remember that. Because when we talk about historians writing these things down, without those historians, we know nothing. For example, all that we know about Atlantis, for example, is from the writings of Plato. So if Plato didn't write about Atlantis, Atlantis wouldn't have ever existed. But why have we got so many people writing about Hanno? That's a really interesting question. There's another Roman writer called Arrian. That's another one. And he mentions Hanno the Libyan set out from Carthage with Libya on his left. There you go. Nice description. Yeah. He's coastal hugging. Libya's on the left. And sailed out through the Pillars of Hercules into the outer sea. This Mediterranean was the inner sea, and the outer sea is the Atlantic. Continuing his journey, continuing his voyage, actually, let's use the words, continuing his voyage, same thing. Then in an easterly direction for a total of 35 days, right? So hang on a minute, eastern direction, hang on, wait a minute, that's the other way. Anyway, no, what he's doing, he meaning going south and then sort of easterly along the coast. That's what we're looking at. Easterly direction for a total of 35 days. But when he eventually turned south, he met a number of crippling obstacles: lack of water, burning heat, streams of lava gushing into the sea. But again, this was written down. This is amazing that we know about this individual, right? And then, other than finding no statues of Lloyd George, which is a shame, but there in this work, the work of Periplus, the actual sort of type of work this is, the Periplus. We mentioned at the beginning. There's a description of hairy, savage-looking people. And listen to this. You know, this is taken from the work of Hanno or whatever. Attempts to capture the men failed. 3 of the women were taken, but were so ferocious that they were killed. Their skins brought home to Carthage. The skins were kept in the temple of Juno on Hanno's return, and according to Pliny the Elder, survived until the Roman destruction of Carthage in 146 BC, some 350 years after Hanno's expedition. And I think that's rather interesting because it tells us of 2 things. One, the Carthaginians didn't go back and get more of these people. Why? And secondly, they had some kind of a museum they had a museum there. Yeah, amazing, interesting that. So just one thing that we'll move on to our next explorer in a moment. But one thing that makes this implausible, right, is the following description. There's a report in Periplus of Hanno, king of the Carthaginians. He wasn't king of the Carthaginians at all. So where we got that from? We mentioned that at the beginning. Into the Libyan areas of the earth beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which he dedicated to a sanctuary of Kronos. That was one of their gods. With 60 ships and 30,000 people. Well, slightly unlikely to be more than 3,000. That's life. Hanno intends to found cities along the African coast. That's one description of what he was doing. He first founds one city and another city, and strangely enough, right, this is really weird, they learn of the nearby Ethiopians. What? Hang on a minute. What? Ethiopians? Like, what are they doing there? Right? So that's a really weird one. Right. And then it goes on about creating sort of settlements along the coast, right? But that number of people is really unlikely. So I just wanted to bring you that as something different, something sort of something new, something that you may not have come across, which I've achieved that. So again, why we'd not come across him, because this is from one of those beautifully illustrated Victorian books with monkeys. Those are the people, the monkey man, actually Cameroon. They didn't manage to make off with the men because they were monkeys, right? So there's Hanno, and this is where we're going to go next. So it would be nice to finish at a reasonable time tonight, simply because I've got to sort out some more sheep shit. Honestly, we've got a big order of 3 lots of sheep shit which we've got to get ready, and also I want to do that other recording of me in the woods and get the stone set up and just start that. But what we're going to do, we're going to go to Pythias next, and this is again one of those really, really interesting things, Pythias. And the stories of Pythias. Now, I've been sort of putting this off for a while. Pythias of Marseille, right? And there's a lot written about this guy as well. But this guy, a bit like Hanno, but this guy does something else. He goes north. He goes northerly, right? That's where he goes. And we think he goes to Iceland. Amazing, which changes everything. And there's descriptions of people in Iceland, right, as living there, when in fact, usually, if I'm talking about Iceland, it was discovered by people from Norway or Sweden, Denmark, who are later identified as Vikings, who first went to Iceland. So this really changes everything. So what I've got is I've got 2 texts, and I'm going to do the first one, and then I'm going to do a bit of the other text, and then there's some really interesting stuff I want to show you on the Wikipedia page, actually, which I did last night. So what we've got these images, and we've got these maps, copies. This is a copy of a map, right? And we get very very much confused by this map, because this map is said to be a map of Pythias's journey, Pytheas, Pythias, whatever you want to call him, right? This is a map later produced by Strabo, the Roman writer who's writing roughly around the birth of Christ, right? And then, but unfortunately, there's so much added on this after the journey of Pythias that it can't just be based upon Pythias's, etchings and work. So it's some really interesting things that I want to tell you. So let's just look at this map. This is a nice little one. So he comes away from Marseille, which is known as Massalia. And again, this is rather interesting because the date of his explorations, amazingly, is the year, it was the 14th of March in the year 325 years BC. 815 he set out. But anyway, he's a Greek explorer, a Greek geographer, an explorer. Now, there's something about this whole story, right? It's 325. Why did he go out through the Pillars of Hercules, right? He's not going south, he's going north, right? Why is he going north? And lots of the things, right? Lots of people doubt the journey, and then they turn around and say, where's he getting amber from if he didn't do this? How is he describing this icy world further north if he didn't do this? How is he describing the Orcus people? Orkney, yeah. Yeah. So there's all these different things. So we'll do a little bit of this, and then we'll have a break. So here we go. He explores northwestern Europe. So in the process, he became the first scholar to note details about the Celtic people and also the people of Belerion, yeah, and the Britannic Isles. In other words, the British Isles. Now, we did go off on one about this last night, and it's something that I need to understand. I need you to understand, but I need to understand as well, right? It's something that is quite bigger than I thought. So if you look at my book, Romans in South Wales, the third edition, after we made changes in it, you look in that, and I talk about the people of South Wales, and obviously it's about the Romans in South Wales, but I dismiss this Siluri thing, the people of the Slugger thing, right? But it's more critical than that, because how do you know that these people call themselves anything? That's the point. There's me saying, the Romans had to give a name to these people, because the names that these people were telling the Romans didn't make any sense. But if you've got a little village and you don't leave your village, or you don't go any further than your village, do you actually need a name for that village? And the answer is no. Because, and the reason why I'm saying no, right, is this. Where I live, right, side of a hill, there's no place name for where we are. And this, well, there is, but we don't use that place name, right? None of us use it, right? Because we live here, and you live there, and the guy lives over there, and the woman lives there, and they live there, right? I don't know the names of these places, but I know they live over there, right? We've got all place names for houses because we've got the postman delivering, and we've got the council sending us rates bills, or we've got the electrical company, and But hang on a minute, most of us haven't got place names on our houses. We've got numbers, right? So what do we call ourselves? Do we does Henry say he's a Wickian? Does Anne say she's a Brackian, right? I don't think so. I don't. But this is what I'm getting at. When we get these place names, it might actually mean something to that one person that you're talking to, but to the rest of the people in Britain, people didn't call themselves anything. And I think it's a really important point. You could disagree, but for me, that's a really interesting point that I'm making. So his voyage took him from the Pillars of Hercules, the modern Straits of Gibraltar, along the Atlantic coast of Spain and France, and to Amorica, modern Brittany. There you go. Pas de Celts. There you go, the place of the Celts. And Pas de Gael, as you know, Wales. There you go. So anyway, go back to the map. So where he noted various Celtic tribes. There you go. At least some of those he mentioned can be linked to tribes which were also present in the period during the conquest of Julius Caesar, 300 odd years later. That's his point. That's not my point, right? So what I'm getting at is that, do we really need to give as much on these place names and localities as we're thinking, right? The main thing is going out there, circumnavigating Britain. So during his trip, he visited the British Isles before finally making his way to Scandinavia, noting various tribes there, and perhaps being the first man to note the name Thule, a far northern location in classical European literature and cartography. But I criticised this last night. I said Thule. That's a Scandinavian name. That's not a name that Pythias would have given Iceland. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a chat. We're going to have a little break, and it's good that everybody's joined us tonight. So let's get off there, and as I said earlier on, I'll be slowing down a little bit next week. Instead of doing loads of little bits of topics, we'll start to hone in on one or two. Except when you come up with beautiful articles like that, Henry and Goff. Yeah, we've got to do them. Right, so Richard, anything you want to say, love? You don't want to, I call him love. You don't want to say anything. Terrible.
No, nothing really interesting.
Good. Can I just convince you to put some wax on that moustache, and we want to see handlebars next week?
I will be here next week.
Well, don't bother then.
Don't bother.
Is that moustache folded down, or is it like?
Oh, there.
No, right, fair enough.
Yeah, stuck on. Glued
All
on.
right, fair enough.
I glued
Oh,
it
no,
on.
you were impressing me there, Richard. Right, Goff.
Yeah, it's very good. And I recommend a book I read a couple of years ago by Barry Cunliffe.
Oh yeah, go on.
And it's called The Amazing Journey of Pythias the Greek. And it's all about his trip up to Britain and Scandinavia. It's really, you can get it on Amazon.
Good. Well, there you go. We're doing a snippet tonight, and obviously you've got a full book on it, so that's good. Good. Thanks for that.
And it's
Barry
not a thick
Cunliffe.
book.
Hey?
It's not a thick book.
Oh well, that'll be good for Am then.
Right.
That'll be good. Right. Anything you want to say, Anne? Oh, hang on. Is she there?
He's disappeared.
I think Pat upset her. Anything from you, Pat?
Just to apologize. Our dog was limping, and we had to take to the vet. So I'm having my dinner, and the dog's better now. Medication of a swelling on a joint.
Oh.
Ah, so you got some Loxicrom on it, yeah?
Yeah, and we got 640 pounds.
Wow.
The X-ray is 3 something,
What a rip-off.
We got dog insurance, so it should cover all but 125. But yeah, I hope your animals are cheaper than ours.
Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. You've had a £650 bill and your insurance covers 150.
Oh, all but 150, 125.
Oh, right. You got an excess. Right. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. It's still a bloody. That's a car excess. That is. I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Basically. Oh, yeah. The other week. I took one of our sheep down to the vets. Right. And we weighed it. A consultation. Our farm animals are a lot less than normal animals. So it said like the consultation was 47 quid. That was fine. And then he put £65 down for bandages.
Oh,
And I thought, hang on a minute, right? This don't make sense. What he had done, he had ticked the box, one box of bandages, and another box. So in other words, he had charged us for 2 full boxes of bandages when we only used 2. So I phoned them up and I said, and they're charging us a £5 and not 65 quid.
Amazing.
Right. You've got to check these bills.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right, Henry, anything you want to say, darling?
No, I think it was quite interesting to see how people travelled and explored.
Yeah.
And it makes your mind wander, basically how much travel was actually physically going on.
A lot more than we think. The thing is, it's not like today, is it? You go on holiday, you take 1,000 photographs, you send 500 postcards. There's evidence of it, but people weren't like this back then. They just got on with it, Speaking for Goff, he did a lot of sailing out there, but are we ever going to know all the places that Goff went to? Goff is probably a lot. And loads of people have done these journeys. It's only a few people who've recorded these things down. That's the point. We've got 2 examples of them. So, right, it's 8:12, and we will be back at 8:25. So I'll see you soon, guys.
okay.
Okay. Look
So
forward to
13
it.
minutes, guys. I don't talk about the cricket because I'll be bowled over.
Oh, God.
Oh God. That link is good. Oh, I do. Oh, just Japan. Well, that's that sorted. It's all for the good of the country, it is.
Was that the cheap shit?
Oh well, no, that's later on. Yeah, I didn't want to get it because we sell cheap shit and it's people love it.
Well, I know that because I stood up for you when I saw Jim, because he said you weren't fit to shovel it, and I said you were.
I don't think I need to say any more there. I actually, you know, that yeah, you know, I don't have words. I just, I need to crack on. I just don't, I tell you what, there's just no, yeah,
Yes.
it's the first time I've been speechless for a long time. Woo! Right, okay. Yay. Right, okay. Right, so anyway, our explorer blokey, right, and right, I gotta crack on, otherwise. Anne said that she, Anne was texting me and stuff, and she was saying, you know, that she apparently she's had a malvirus, right? The thing is, you only have these viruses if you've been looking at dodgy stuff on the internet. Do you know what I mean? And anyway, hopefully everybody's there, so we're cracking on. And I'm just going to make sure that this is all up and running.
Yeah, ready and waiting.
Oh, good. I'm glad you decided to come back. You weren't spending any time with Anne, were you?
Absolutely not.
Oh no, come on, that's really horrible. Right, so one of the things, if we look at this and we sort of get to grips with this, right? It's very much about Pythias's time in Britain and his time within the vicinity of the British Isles and the names that have been drawn down from that visit. Now, the problem is when the story of Pythias's journey gets down history, the original work of Pythias has been changed and altered and moved on. And there's that question, how much of this journey is real and how much is it not? However, when the Roman historians write it down, there's much on his journey that the Romans couldn't have found out anyway. So it's down to this guy. So apparently he traveled extensively around the Isles of Britain. And there's a marker there for the likes of Ireland. Now, this could be one sailing route, or this could be another sailing route. So some say he sort of went from Marseille, Gates of Hercules. This is my preferred route rather than going across the Bay of Biscay like that, right? If you've got a coastal hugger, you're going to hug the coast. If you're going to go all the way along, all the way sort of Channel Islands, where the waters are fairly calm there anyway, rather than way out in the bay, and then up to Normandy, well, Brittany, then Normandy, and then all the way, if you take this map, all the way the Straits of Dover, and it's actually, instead of taking you to the coast of Britain, it's actually taking you over to Denmark, over to the Baltic, back out of the Baltic, straight to Denmark, back out all the way across the North Sea, over to Orkney, and then all the way over to Thule, Iceland, and then back along. And it's a bit of convoluted, but he obviously must have done it. It could have been more than one trip, actually. That makes sense. Now, one of the key items with this is that apparently he travelled extensively around the British Isles, making notes of what he saw, and also provided what was maybe the earliest written report of Stonehenge. So he's probably doing a bit of this, and he's probably doing a bit of this as well. In fact, there's no way could he have gone to Stonehenge if he was just hugging the coast of Brittany and Normandy. He must have come over to the coast of southern southern England, to actually get an account of Stonehenge. It could be argued that he sat down with people and he said, "Oh, what's your most important monument?" That type of thing. And there's, "Oh, Stonehenge." But he gives an account of Stonehenge. That's the point. He's not like a later historian by the name of John Leyland, that's writing in the 1530s, 1540s, who goes all the way around Britain and writes a history of Britain for Henry VIII, actually not ever seeing most of the things that he's writing about because he's half blind. So this is probably more accurate. The Pythias's journey is more accurate, and what we know. So he named the promontory of Kent, Cantillon, land of the Cantai, modern Kent. Now, there's a problem with that. Is it about later interpretations, like Strabo, who's writing 300 plus years later? And this is what we get from. Hang on, that's not a good example. This is what we get from sort of Strabo, right? So, you've got the Scotland there. You've got Ireland. You've got. He's mentioning the Orkneys there. Somewhere along the line, you've got the likes of Thule, Iceland. And he's mentioning the promontory of Belerion, which is Cornwall, the land of the Cornovi, the land of the Belerions, right? So obviously what he's originally calling it, or what they are saying to him, is a bone of contention, right? An Orcus. An orca is another name for a type of dolphin, right? Which we give to these dolphin-like creatures, right? So somebody mentioned last night they could have stood, for example, at Penzance, and there he is speaking in Greek. What's the name of the place? And they're saying Belerion. In other words, bugger off, right? So he's writing down Belerion as the place name when in fact it doesn't mean that at all, right? So that was an important point that we were making last night. To ascertain these names, but to ascertain a name or something, to ascertain some information, what these people had the foggiest way of saying anything, right? This is the stuff he's writing down, right? So people may have had a different way of looking at the landscape. So if he tried to ask if he knew any of the local dialect, which would be very mixed all over the country. So say he said, for example, what do you call yourselves? And they point over there and say, hill, right? So he writes down hill, when in fact, he's writing down what they're telling him. And in fact, whatever he's writing down, what they're telling him, right? The translation is not going to be right either. So, you know, he could have misheard something, right? And he's writing it down in his text. But the point is that the whole point of this is the whole. I'm mucking around with this. I'm sort of uh, allowing it to be a bit confusing. But what I'm trying to get at is that to know some of the information he knew, he must have come to Britain. That is the whole point. That is the whole point of this, right? Whatever he's writing down, there is some information that directly relates to Britain. End of. Like, I can't deny that. It's there. Right. So he recorded was home he recorded that Britain was home to a civilized people who were especially hospitable to strangers. Well, he obviously didn't visit Barry, but you know, he must have visited the South Coast. Apparently, due to their dealings with foreign merchants who were involved in the tin trade. So we do know about Britain, we do know about the existence of the South Coast well before Pythias, right? We well before Pythias, we know about Britain anyway, because the Phoenicians, well before Pythias, have been dealing with Britain. People from the Copper Islands have been dealing with people from Britain with their tin. But then he's gone a bit further. He's telling us a little bit more. And then you get the likes of the Baltic, right? And you get the likes of the Baltic and the amber there. So this is something really interesting. Again, this is a copy of a map copy that was eventually published in a book in the 1400s that was based on the work of Strabo, who was a Roman historian, writer. So this is rather interesting again, right? He also named the British Isles the Britannic Isles, which sounds very similar to Britannic. The name Britannic is a name that was given to Britain by the Romans, right? But if he's calling it the Britannic Isles with a P, Britannic, that's rather interesting again. So now the point is with this is, right, there's a name he's writing down for these isles, the Britannic Isles. So if he docked in Hull, right, the people in Hull ain't going to say, oh, by the way, we're British, right? The people in Scotland ain't going to be saying, by the way, we're British. And the people in Ireland aren't going to be saying, we're British, right? Because these people in Britain would not have had a concept of being British, right? Somebody in Orkney would never, ever see in a lifetime, within a lifetime, somebody living in Cornwall, right? Somebody in Kent, Hantai, right? Would never see anyone in Ireland, right? And they would and never see anybody from Orkney. So the point is what I'm trying to make out. What does the word Britannic mean? Is it a name he gave to the Isles, or is it a name that he picked up from somebody, right? By the way, around here we call ourselves the Britannic people, which could actually be the name for people from Northumberland, and a name that nobody else had. Do you see the point I'm trying to make? The name has been picked up from somewhere. This information has come from somewhere. He's written it from something, somewhere, some translation, some information, and he's written it down. So obviously this is the geography that we've got. And again, later transcribed and changed into something else. So although the spelling varies thanks to the translation from his original Greek, whether he coined this name himself, yeah, more likely gained it from the inhabitants, is unknown, right? Now, I'm going to say it. The work of Pythias is a bit like the Mappa Mundi, right? In Hereford Cathedral. So when you go and see the Mappa Mundi, it's a tiny thing. I don't know if any of you have seen the Mappa Mundi, but the Mappa Mundi is the size of my laptop. It's freaking tiny, right? And you see this thing in a room, and you know there's lights and stuff. It's beautiful, right? And it's got all these little figures and stuff on it, right? Now that's you could say that one explorer put the Mappa Mundi together, but it's put together by a number of different scholars, right? So what we're talking about with Pythias is a similar thing, right? There is some map, there is some information, there's some information that he's writing down that tell us that he circumnavigated Britain. End of. That's what we're looking at. I'm not trying to demean this, I'm trying to analyze it at the same time. So later sources recorded the name of Alba, meaning white for the British Isles, and Eri, E-R-E, meaning west for Erin Island. Now, this is really important. When if Eri, E-R-E means west, right? Or people get a concept of south, north, east, and west, which is again, why would you need a concept of north, south, east, and west in Iron Age Britain? You don't need it, right? You just follow stars and stuff. You don't need the concept of north, south, east, and west. It means nothing to you, right? That thing over there, Island Erin, it's an island. That might have been another name for an island. Erin Island, actually, island, Erin Island, it's an island. So all these things tie together in a weird roundabout way. And Alba, now that's really strange. If you've ever thought about it, the Scottish Nationalist Party, called Alba, founded by the wonderful Alex Salmon, loved him to bits. Right, he's no longer with us, but he formed a political party in Scotland called Alba to compete with the Scottish Nationalist Party. Right, that's Albion, right, which is marked on the map here at the top by Strabo, right? So Alba, and then you go down to the legends associated like, with King Arthur. You know, the legend of Albion, Alba, and this is the thing. These things are being written down from something. I'm not dismissing them. The Britannic Isles, or it could simply mean this is our home. That it's Britannic home. That's it. It is their home. It makes me, and obviously it's a concept that the Greeks wouldn't have, right? Because the Greeks have their island. They have places like Olympia, Mount Olympus, you know, Delphi, you know, Rhodes, you know, these different things. You know, you know, he's a Greek guy. You know, he's a different way of looking at the world, right? We had a different way of looking at the world. We had a non-literal form of looking at the world, you know, and that makes me think again about when we think about when we look at the valleys in the 1930s, you know, we've all heard people joking about it. Somebody in the valleys would never ever leave the valleys. I don't know if you've ever seen the TV series High Hopes, and they're saying, "Oh, you've got to leave the valleys. Oh, you know, we got to go to Cardiff. That's a big place. You know, it's like 20 miles away. You don't want to go there, right?" That's all based around the fact that people themselves didn't go far, you know. And why would you have concepts of north, south, east, and west? Why would you have concepts of the name of that village over there, right? And it's quite possible that we give names to villages, right? Naming places, giving names to places is I'm not totally correct on what I'm about to say, but I'm so close, right? When you give names to places, that's something that the Romans did, right? So you know, Londinium, Eboracum, Corinium, Ventisilurum, you know, down the road, Bovium, you know, Nedum, and all these different places. These are names that the Romans gave to places, right? Not names that people would have called these places anyway, you know. So we've got to remember all that. There's different ways of looking at the world, and when we look at this, there is a different way of looking at the world, right? So this is why with me, I want to get sort of into more understanding the world as I'm teaching it to you guys, right? So I can get more of these concepts together. So Britannic refers, in the writings here, does it refer to the island, or more so not to the islands but the people of the islands? We are the Britannic. We're islanders, right? Did the people of Britain know they were on an island? There's another question, right? That's the thing, right? I don't know I'm on an island. I really don't. I'm living in West Wales. You know, I could be in Europe. You know, I do know because I'm an educated person, but that's not the point, right? So this is the thing. So the entirety of people's thoughts and ideas bring us these different suffixes of ideas, the plurality of information, which is being recorded down. He needed to record something down. He couldn't just say, I went to Thingy and there was Thingy over there and the diddly doos and the Foodly Erpins. I spoke to them, and there's Tiddly Squat Mountain, right? So he's writing something down based on some information that he was given and seeing. So later, when about 2/3 of the eastern island was held by the Romans, Alba was exiled to the far north, much as some of the region's inhabitants had been marginalized by later arrivals, such as the Celts, or escaping there to avoid the Romans. What the hell is that about? The Romans hadn't even been to Britain at that stage. What this is about is that Albion Strabo is trying to allow us, in that chapter that I've just, that sort of paragraph that I've just mentioned, then, 2/3 of the eastern island held by the Romans. The Romans didn't hold this island. They didn't hold it for another 400 years, right? But the concept of Strabo is that what Strabo is saying, Pytheas got to Britain, and Pytheas saw a Britain that was seemingly had different types of people, right? These Britannic people were different, right? And I think that's what Strabo's getting at, based on the work of Pytheas, right? So when we come to understand this, and when we come to really get into this whole story, let's show you something else. So what I've got is I've gone on to strange enough, I've been avoiding using the Wikipedia stuff. I go with nice books or nice text that I'm coming across. Oh, by the way, there's the whole thing there. I want to do that. Right, so what have we got there? Pytheas. There's some nice mapping stuff. There we go. Images. Is that there? Is that the one? Yeah, that's the one. Right, there's some images there. Good. So this is apparently, this refers to, hang on. Right, that refers to that little red thing there. Refers to Pytheas of Marsalia, which is Marseille. That's his first name there, and this is actually written down by Strabo, and then it was retranslated in the 900s by a Byzantine scholar, rewriting down Strabo's work, which was based on Pytheas's work. Now, what we got next? And there's Strabo's work. So obviously this has been reprinted, and it's circumnavigating and visiting a considerable part of the British Isles. And then we've got an idea that he's referring to the polar ice as well, which is rather interesting. And there's lots of people writing and trying to understand what he's talking about, right, to try and make sense. So the circumnavigation, this is the interesting bit. This is what we're doing, right? There we go. There's Pytheas again. There's that map, and that's referred to a Pictish doodah. We don't want that. Go on. There. This is the better map. That's really much clearer. So, and also, right. So this is an Italian reconstruction of the map of Ptolemy, which is based on Ptolemy using Pytheas's description of the landscape. So all of this here is based on Pytheas. As I said, I keep saying this has been rehashed and re-looked at over the years. So Strabo reported, the Roman writer, 2,000 years ago, said he travelled over the whole of Britain that was accessible. So obviously where there's trees, he's not going to be able to get through them. And this is an interesting thing. Pytheas was able to do this journey and come back alive. So what does that say? It said that the circumnavigation of Britain was 4,554 miles by one historian, right? One historian said Didorius Siculus, saying that he circumnavigated Britain, and it was 4,830 miles, right? And obviously from Land's End to John O'Groats is 700 miles, right? So if you're going to circumnavigate Britain properly, you're going to go down the River Thames, you're going to go into the Hull, you're going to go into the Wash, right? So this circumnavigation is based upon him looking at the coastline, not just sailing around the British coast, right, and just at a distance. He's actually into the coastline recording things, because the distances of 4,830. Didorius Siculus is saying 4,830 miles, right? That's based upon the fact that he must have actually been going into the inlets and stuff. We were talking about this last night, and I basically Andy, who's our lifeguard, who's our water guy, right, on a Tuesday, I said, well, Andy, what is actually the proper circumference of Britain if you did all the inlets and stuff? And he said it's actually more like 12,000 miles, right? But that's based on going down a lot of the rivers and sort of really getting in tight and stuff. So this is so he very much did the perimeter of the British Isles, and he really sort of told us that and let us understand, and took us there. And he's taken us to the three corners: Kent, Cantillon, Belerion, Cornwall, Orcus, Orkney, and all of this is happening now. The other thing that we actually think and try to understand is this other point that is being made, right? So if we back to the map and we think about Iceland, right? So one sec. Some historians writing and looking and trying to retranscribe concerning the location of Thule. Thule was described as an island 6 days sailing north of Britain, near the frozen sea. And this is the point. It's said that Pytheas went to Thule, Iceland, right? And from his description, it seems like he must have gone to Iceland. This is based on his original description. It goes as follows, right? He might possibly seem to have made adequate use of the facts as regards the people who live close to the frozen zone. So he's talking about the frozen zone. Orkney, there's no ice around it, right? So the island that he's referring to is not Shetland or Orkney. It's an island which is further north. It might actually be Jan Mayen. He may not have got to Iceland, but he's certainly got to an island over there, right? When he says that, the people live on millet and other herbs and on fruits and roots. And where there are grain and honey, the people get their beverage also from them. As for the grain, he says, since they have no pure sunshine, they pound it out in large storehouses, after first gathering in the ears hither, for the threshing floors become useless because this lack of sunshine and because of the rain. So there is some great description, and lots has been said about his interaction with like a frozen sea, right? But he would have actually come across a frozen sea off the coast of Sweden, so heading out to the Baltic, and getting that description. Now, when we talk about Pytheas and we talk about him heading towards the Baltic, right? It's this important stuff that's brought back amber, right? The purest of amber, the amber without the little animals and stuff in it, the purest of amber. And the description Pliny the Elder says that Pytheas speaks. This is Pliny the Elder in the Natural History. He refers to as Pytheas again. Speaks of an estuary of the ocean named Menchunis, and extending for 750 miles. The shores of which are inhabited by a German tribe. So all the way into the Baltic. And it states that amber is carried in spring by currents, being an excretion consisting of solidified brine. He adds that the inhabitants of the region use it as fuel instead of wood and sell it to the neighboring Teutons, which is basically the old name for East Prussia, modern day Poland. And it's basically said that to understand that this is where, right, there's a description of amber, right, and it must be because somebody went there, and it must have been very likely to have been on the same journey that Pytheas took to get the amber, because to get those descriptions, it must have been somebody actually physically going there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of find that and call, and we're going to do a little bit more, right? We're going to finish on that. We've done that Pytheas bit there. There's loads of stuff out there that you can actually read and understand about this individual. But again, it goes back to why is Pytheas going out anyway? Why does he need to go out there? Can a Greek explorer afford to go north, and so on? It might have been because there's a war going on. So Pytheas is going out in 325, and there's little minor skirmishes between Carthage and Rome, even as far back as the 340s, the 330s, and the 320s, right? And it might be that Pytheas is thinking, oh, there's warfare going on. Let's go somewhere and do something useful rather than being caught up in a war. So I want to close on something that I wanted to touch upon tonight. And I wanted to look at a little bit about these historians, and then call it a day. It's still a lovely evening because I'm chaffing at the bit to get out. So try and get up to about 1:15 now. So when I asked the question, and I asked the question, who was the first British-born historian, right? And the first thing you come up with in any book is the Venerable Bede, an English Benedictine monk, is widely considered the first British-born historian, right? We're talking about historians now. There's obviously other writers. So British-born historian. His most famous work, The Ecclesiastical History of the English People, written in Latin, is a foundation text for understanding the early history of England. And I thought, oh, right, okay. When we're thinking about this, it doesn't really answer my question, because I want to know about Roman historians and Greek historians. And Bede wasn't around in the 400s. He wasn't around in the 500s. He died on the 26th of May, 735 AD. So AD 735 at Jarrow, right? So, but there is Bede. And there it is, Northumberland, 673, died 735. And then I started mucking around with Agricola. Now Agricola's got a history written about him, right? So he's a pseudo historian, right? Because Tacitus is writing about Agricola. So the first Roman, in brackets, Roman historian born in Britain. He wasn't actually born in Britain. He was born in France. Born in Britain, Gnaeus Julius Agricola, from Forum Julie, France in AD 40. While not born within the geographical boundaries of the Roman Britain, he became a prominent Roman general and governor of Britain, and his son-in-law Tacitus wrote a biography of him, which is a valuable historical source. Now, it's rather interesting that whenever we're talking about Britain, Tacitus seems to come up. He seems to he seems to be a person who's mentioned, right? And Tacitus is observing things himself, and then what he's observing is understood and retranscribed by Tacitus, who's writing about Agricola somewhere around AD 98. So, and there he is. There's our wonderful Tacitus, right? And so what we've got, we'll tell you a little bit about this guy. So Agricola, the Dei Vitae, Aet Moribus Julia Agricola, which is basically the life and times of Julia Agricola, written by Tacitus. And so this is rather interesting because Agricola is in Britain, right? He's a serving governor, he's a serving general, and it's like a biography of his work and of what this guy is actually capable of. So when we want to discuss historians, and when we want to discuss being there in Britain, and then Tacitus, is writing very much about his father-in-law, right? Tacitus is writing about a guy who was in Britain, was a campaigner in Britain, years after the death of the likes of Emperor Claudius, but he was in Britain. And whereas he was in Britain as a governor and as a major general between AD 77 to AD 84, and we think possibly that Agricola, from the writings of Tacitus, may have actually come over to Ireland, right? There's a little bit of that, not too much, a little bit of that. We know that Agricola invaded Alba, which is Scotland. Agricola did lots of reforms in Britain. So again, Tacitus, not so much being a historian, Agricola, but his work and what he wrote about and then being written about by Tacitus makes Agricola, in a way, a historian, because this guy is here. We've got his personal life. Well, we've got the personality of him being a governor, which is really, really important. So again, we will come across this guy a lot when we're looking at Roman era Britain. But when we go through a list of the likes of Roman historians, it's a long, long, long list, right? And I just thought one of the things I can't do is go through them all one by one, right? Because that just wouldn't be a good thing to do. However, what we've got, and if you type in, which I'm going to do now, we can just generally, and next week we'll do some more of these historians and something completely different. So if we type in here, there's a nice little list online, and it's not Wikipedia. It's a nice little list online. So if you type in list, and it goes of historians, right? There is a list of historians on Wikipedia, but it's not this one, because this one is really good. Ristorians. No, that's not the one. That's the one. We got this one. This is really good. I like this one because it's sort of you got this little list. So we'll just scroll through this quickly. Herodotus, really massively important historian, but Herodotus is sort of they're on the ground, and we're talking about Hanno. There's the link there, right? But where Britain comes into this, it doesn't. But we're talking about Halicarnassus, Helen Hellenicus, Hellenicus, from the island of Lesbos. He's writing about these wars. Lots of Roman historians, Thucydides, writing about the Peloponnese War. Again, you go all down the Hellenistic historians here. And then what you've got, the historians, lots of these historians write about Alexander the Great, and why not? They are writing about, look at them, I'm not going to pronounce some of those. And then you've got some historians of places like Syracuse, right? Antiochus of Syracuse, Turkey. And then you go down the list, and you've got lots of these historians from the Greeks on the islands of Samos, for example. Polybus, we've actually mentioned a few times. We have mentioned Polybus when we've been talking about Carthage and the early stuff. Polybus, history in 40 books. He's written 40 history books, right? And when we're talking about books, are we talking about proper books? Like we've got today. Lots of this is written in scrolls. So one book might be in one scroll, another book might be in another scroll, another book. You do have other ways of recording things. Carved. Something like tablets. You've got carved tablets. You do have sort of, oh God, papyrus, various papyrus basic books, with pages. You do have things that have actually got pages, right? But you've got letter writing, you've got poetry, right? You've got Vindelander tablets, which is a bit of wax, which is in a wooden setting. You've got lots of things being written down, right? You got lots of things, but producing 40 books is massive. Didorius Siculus, we've mentioned him, another 40 books, right? Look at that one. Nicholas of Damascus, history of the world in 80 books. Amazing. Dionysius of Halicarnassus, that's another one that we do come across, right? 20 books there. And then you've got these other historians that you wouldn't have come across. But this Cato the Elder is an interesting one. He's writing about the origins of the Roman world and the Roman state, writing about sort of some of the earlier stuff, and that's in the one the 160s BC, that sort of thing. And then you keep going, these earlier Roman historians that are just sort of slowly getting into it, right? Slowly coming down. These are the ones who would know about the likes of the likes of Spartacus. One on the list here isn't Julius Caesar. So Julius Caesar is writing down. Livy, we mentioned. Livy writes about Alberbe Condito. He writes the foundation story of Rome, right? 142 books. That's a lot of books, and this is all handwritten. There's Julius Caesar there, actually. And you got this guy called Sallust. He does come up writing a few books. We won't go too much into this now. We'll just going through again some of these. Seneca, that's another name that you would have come across. Claudius, Emperor Claudius is writing a history of the Etruscans in 20 books. The actual emperor himself who invaded Britain, Claudius, right? And they're still writing about Alexander. There you go. Rufus is writing about Alexander. Pliny the Elder, that's an important one. I want to do Pliny next week because Pliny's a really interesting figure, because Pliny, there's Pliny the Elder and Pliny the Younger. Pliny the Elder is basically writing a history, a natural history, right? And he's got loads of stuff in it. So he dies 24th of August, trying to save people on the beaches of Strabo. Not Strabo. No, that's the name of a person. Begins with an S. Bloody hell. Anyway, the little harbour that's in the Bay of Naples, which is just down from the likes of Heracleum and Pompeii. That begins with an S, but it's not Strabo because that's the historian. Anyway, so Pliny the Elder goes out and tries to save people then, and he's this historian, that's when he does. Tacitus, there you go. We mentioned Tacitus. Suetonius again, there's another writer. And you go down Appian, we've mentioned Appian, we mentioned Dio Cassius a few times, Appian's writing a lot, Appian tells us a lot about the early stuff involving Roman era Britain, and Dio Cassius tells us so much about early Roman era Britain. But however, he's writing in 150 AD, and when did the Romans start coming over to Britain? AD 43, so it was a bit late there. And you've got all these other historians that come through, and then that's that. So what we're going to do now, we're going to do some questions. I'm going to have another cup of tea. Stop the share. And let's see. I don't know who was coming and going then. But yeah. Did Anne come back on, Richard?
She did,
She
and then
went and
she's gone
came.
again. She did come back.
Oh, good old Anne. Good old Anne. Right, okay. It's a shame we didn't have her input today. The only reason Richard does this is because of Anne. Anyway, right, Henry, anything you want to say, darling?
Not really. I think the only one was actually on that very early map. The top right-hand corner, if you look at it, you might have just an island that looks like Iceland.
Right, okay, we're going to go on the screen. Well, yeah, with all the little things. Yeah, hang on a minute. Let's just go with that. Let's go with the one that was really clear, which was on here, and it was there. Hang on, if we go back to there, I think go right, yeah. We went there, didn't we? And we went there, there. What, that one on the right there?
There on the right.
But that clearly says Orkneys. The one of all the little islands.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does say Orkneys.
Right. Okay.
Oh, right, yeah, above it, it's got Thule. It's got the word Thule.
Yeah.
There. Yeah, that's where. So he's put Thule in the wrong place. The island of Thule. That's it. Yeah, because as you know, Orkney so it's full of islands. It's just nothing but islands, But actually, you've almost got it right there. Because that's Thule. However, that's where Shetland should be. Nobody's mentioned anything about Shetland. I've never said Pythias, and there's nobody mentioned anything about Shetland. However, when you've got descriptions of the frozen sea, right, and you've got like I'm just trying to find the quote here about hang on a minute. It's got like summer tropical. Oh God, there was something here about Thule being farthest north, and the description of the encounter with the ice. Oh, here we go. It goes, Pythias also spoke of the waters around Thule, and of those places where land, properly speaking, no longer exists, nor sea nor air, but a mixture of these things, like a marine lung, in which it was said that earth and water and all things are in suspension, as if this something was a link between all these elements on which one can neither walk nor sail. He's describing ice.
Volcanoes.
Yeah.
Ice.
Yeah. It's all there. But there's no description of volcanoes, but we get that with the works of Hanno, that there's the likes of lava coming into the sea, which I'm not really sure where that works out in Africa. But it's all good stuff, I think, and there it is. So yeah, I'm glad we come back to that and read a little bit more. Good. Anything else from you, Henry?
No, that's it. Thank you. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
See you in 2 weeks' time. Give my love to Dad.
Will do.
Right. Pat, anything you want to say?
I enjoyed that. It was interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Good.
And
Good.
oftentimes I think, I like archaeology, but then history, I'm not as interested in history, but geography, yes, yes, so I don't know.
So obviously discovering these little bits and putting them there, So yeah, this is where we're gradually going. Oh, and also, hang on a minute. Before we go anywhere, hang on a minute. I remembered something because there was something else on the screen, right? Because what I did do was that this is what. Oh no, not that. I don't like that guy. Right, okay, we'll do there. Large and ancient farmers' hall unearthed in Angus. This is the building that didn't have planning permission in Scotland.
Wow.
In the Neolithic period, an illustration showing how the hall might have looked. Right. Archaeologists discovered the remains of a large and complex hall where some of Scotland's first farmers gathered for festivities. Evidence of the timber-built building was uncovered at the site of new football pitches in Carnoust in Angus. Glasgow-based Guard Archaeology said the building 35 meters in length. Do you realize how long 35 meters in length is? That's absolutely frigging huge. 9 meters wide. And this is a building that could have been constructed 6,000 years ago. This is massive. Right. So what you've got stone tools, 8 statues of Lloyd George, which means it's really special. These are deposited. Actually, these stone tools look exactly like the ones that I found in Cyprus in 1989 when I was wandering in the field. Yeah, got it. And among the tools were items made from rocks found in other parts of Scotland. And there it is, Carnoustie. And there, look at that, it's huge. You can only work, that's massive. Bloody hell, over 30 meters long, 9 meters wide. Yeah, you can only get excited with that. It's like they built that for a reason. It meant a lot to them. And all we've got is traces and staining in the ground of bits of pottery, That there is really giving us a bit of depth to the landscape. Right. Loving that. And there's a smaller hole, only 20 meters long by 8 meters. Oh, really small. So it's sophisticated, it's large, it's complex, required skills of design and planning, execution and carpentry. It was fully formed. They're talking about for feasting and celebrating, not just live in the bloody thing. Archaeologists said in the smaller hall there was a hearth with the charred remains of cereal grains and hazelnut shells, which are massive for the likes of the Neolithic period. And it's been commissioned to dig on the site of new pitches near. So basically, it's not going to be destroyed, is it? When pitches, it's going to be like those huts outside. So yeah, that's not going to be destroyed. So there we go. Put a membrane over that, a bit of concrete. We can analyze it in a few decades' time. And again, that's that massive, huge. Yeah,
Right.
that's bigger than the place that Richard used to work, which was in Barry. Anyway.
And one other thing, I am going to go on the Rhine River, the Swiss Alps to the Rhine castles next week.
Oh, you're doing it. Oh, go on.
Yeah, so I'll be going Monday to Monday. So I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Oh my God, that's all right then. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Sorry about that.
So
well, unless I can tune you in, I might be able to tune you in on my phone. You never know.
Yeah, well, make sure you get the time right and don't sign in at bloody 9 o'clock at night.
Right. Yeah, because they got an hour different, I think, aren't they? They're ahead of us.
You could drop in, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for that, Pat. Well, have a great time. So yeah, we'll yeah, nice. I don't know what to say.
Cruise, yeah, woohoo. Yeah, 190 people, something. Like I
So
said,
you got a nice cruise. You just sat there. Are you docking at places or?
about 6 places or 5 places, and just a half day tours. Take it easy. I'm not going to take the bicycle tours or the hiking tours. I'll take
No,
a
we'll leave that. Yeah,
walk for a half hour or something, or an hour and a half.
that's nice. That sounds good. That sounds good. Enjoy it. Right. Anything from you, Goff?
No, no, I'm really enjoying these few lectures. Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Look-
time in Germany. Don't touch the beer.
No, I won't. I never do.
All the schnapps.
Oh,
Yeah, I tried that once. Never mind. We'll move on from that one. Toxic vodka, I call it. Right. Okay then. With a colour to it. Right. Okay. Anyway, enjoy Pat. Enjoy Henry and Goff. Oh, we've already done Goff. Right. Okay. Thank you, Goff.
all right.
We haven't finished yet. We haven't done Richard. You got to listen to Richard. Go on, Richard. Anything you want to say?
That was very interesting.
All right then. On that note, thank you very much. We can all say goodbye.
Yeah, and
Bye.
I won't see you next week.
Oh my God, there'll be two of us. All right. Goff, Anne and me. Oh, lush.
Ah,
Mélange à toi.
We're loving it.
You
We're
could all
loving
meet.
it.
You could all meet in the same room.
Well, no, me and Goff will go to a cinema at the same time. We'll tell Anne to go to the other one.
Bye-bye.
If you like Ralph Fiennes, see 28 years later. Anyway, night night, Richard. Night night, Goff. Night night, Pat. And night night, Henry. Night night.
All right.
Okay,
Have a good
everyone.
time.
so long.
We will. We'll have a good time as well. Night
So long.
night. Night night. Night night.
Bye bye.
And Emma says good night. Night night, Emma. Yeah, cool. Night.
Good night.
Nostalgie. Right. Night night, folks. I've got to go and play I got to go and play with my animals now quickly. I got to handle some shit. Manure, and I've got to do a little video, so I'm going to try and get all this done in 10 minutes so I can get out. I'm going. So night night, folks. So night night, Emma and Dad and all the other people. All the lonely people. Nah, we're not, are we? We can't be lonely. Right, chat, anything in the chat box. Nothing in that chat box there, nothing in that window 2, nothing in that window 3, 4. Oh, nothing in that window 6, 7, and that window there 8, that window there 9, and 10 and 11. Nostalgie, night night, folks. I'm gonna go. Night night, night night, night night, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe.